Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode we are going to be doing a quick tip tactica for everyone's favourite Cadian boys, the Kasrkin. I know there are many guard commanders out there who are a little uncertain about what to do with their elite shock troops since the latest FAQ which nerfed the Kasrkin bomb. But fear not, my little conscript, take that eBay listing down. There's no need to sell them, for your Kasrkin are still a very powerful unit with many varied and interesting uses on the tabletop. One of which we're going to be covering today, a tactic I like to call the Blitzkrieg boys. And so without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, smash through the Maginot line, and dive right into today's video. Let's begin by taking a look at what we need to implement this tactic. To start off, you're going to need a Kasrkin squad. I know, what a surprise, a Kasrkin tactics video that requires a Kasrkin squad. It would have been a real curveball if I'd said you needed a Kachan jungle fighter squad, but that was never going to happen because there's no tactics for Kachan jungle fighter squad. Rip my Rambo boys. Moving on! Once you've got your Kasrkin squad, you are going to need to pick their extra regimental doctrine via their warrior elite ability. I'm going to assume that you have at least one wrinkle in your brain and you have picked born soldiers as your main thing for your army. But for the warrior elite ability for this squad, you're going to want mechanized infantry. This doctrine allows your Kasrkin to get out of the transport after it has moved. If you're watching this video in about 2 months' time when 10th edition has come out and you're very confused about why we need a special doctrine to do that, well, back in the dark days of 8th and 9th, we all had to move our transports and then wait a turn before we could get out, as each squad member individually took the time to say thank you to the bus driver. Once you've got the squad and picked out the regimental doctrine, you need to give them some equipment. We're going to go for a sergeant with a plasma pistol, 2 other Kasrkin with plasma guns, 2 more with melter guns, 1 with the hotshot sniper rifle, 1 with the Voxcaster, and the rest are going to have rifles. After this, you're going to want to spend a command point on the battlefield bequest stratagem and give your sergeant the Emperor's Fury plasma pistol. I love this relic, it's so cool. If you're unfamiliar with it, essentially it's a plasma pistol that always fires 3 shots and it always counts as being overcharged, but it never overheats. It's a really, really good plasma pistol. And whilst we're on the topic of spending CP, there are a couple of stratagems that you want in your back pocket as well. Those are Armoured Fist Squad and Mount Up, and we'll get into what those do in just a moment. But before we move on, there's one last thing that we need, and we need a Taurox. Yep, I'll say it again because I imagine many of you have fallen out of your chairs at the idea that Mordy and Glory is suggesting a Taurox over a Chimera. Let me be honest, it can be a Chimera if you want it to be, but Tauroxes are cheaper, and the main job of the transport in the scenario is to get you from A to B. That's it. Its firepower is okay, but really the Kasrkin are going to be there doing the damage. So the fact that you can get a transport that is actually faster than the Chimera and is cheaper than the Chimera does kind of lend itself to the job. But if you're like me and the thought of including a Taurox in your army makes you want to throw up, then of course continue with the good old Chimera. But now that you've all finished making your calls to the Commissariat or the Inquisition and reported me for suggesting, even thinking about using a Taurox, let's add all of these elements together and go over how this works. So the first thing you want to do is put those Kasrkin in the transport. There are a couple of main reasons for doing this. Firstly, a lot of the tactics involve around moving and disembarking and using stratagems and stuff like that. But secondly, it's going to make sure your guys are safe. If you don't start off in the transport for whatever reason and you face off against someone with some indirect fire, they're going to pick up those Kasrkin very quickly. Even in a post-nerf world, Kasrkin are still rightly feared in the competitive community, and your opponent, if they have the chance, will remove them from your army as soon as you can. Once safely aboard, you then need to be patient. It is a slow blade that penetrates the shield. And the best way of using these Blitzkrieg boys is as a rapid reaction force, either going on the attack and using it to go after a target of opportunity, or counter-attacking an enemy breakthrough. What this opportunity looks like is going to vary from faction to faction and game to game. If you're playing against an aggressive army like Goth Pressure, then you're going to find your line infantry are going to get chewed up much quicker than normal. You may find that your ponderous normal units will struggle to redirect if your opponent concentrates on a particular flank. But the rapid reaction force, the Blitzkrieg boys, are here to save the day. Move over, get out, and clear the area. Plug that gap. Or you may find yourself playing against a slower force. Perhaps some Death Guard are smelling up your area, and they've just left a small isolated unit of Marines on a far left objective, something that they're hoping you're going to forget about. Well, a rapid reaction force, the Blitzkrieg boys, once again, can come into the fight, and they can drive up, get out, they can clear that objective, and especially if it's a 6 objective mission, you may end up denying your opponent some primary points there. Regardless of what the opportunity looks like, when you have identified it, it's time to deploy the rapid reaction force. It's time to send in the Blitzkrieg boys. You move your Taurox out and you disembark the infantry. Now, your Taurox has a 14-inch threat range and your Kasrkin can get out 3 inches, which means their total move is 17 inches. Quick little side note, there are a couple of ways you can make this an even bigger move. Firstly, you could tell the Taurox to full throttle if you happen to have a spare mechanized order available. This will give the Taurox an extra 2-inch movement, regardless of whether it decides to advance or not. It can just go an extra 2 inches. On top of that, if for some reason, perhaps it fits into your wider strategy, you have taken Swift as the Wind, it will give your non-infantry units another 2-inch extra movement, meaning that the total, if you went all in on this, movement that your Kasrkin can achieve is 21 inches. But coming back to the main topic at hand, once you've moved and disembarked thanks to mechanized infantry, it's time to spend the first of our 2 stratagems. This is Armored Fist. Now, Armored Fist can be used on a core Astra Militarum unit, and thankfully Kasrkin are core, and it allows you to get full rerolls to wound the turn that you disembark from a transport. I know many of you are wishing that this stratagem gave you full rerolls to hit, especially considering Born Soldiers and the fact we're rocking a lot of plasma in this unit, but we have to make do with what the Emperor provides. And weirdly, whenever I have used this tactic, I've found the rerolls to wound very, very helpful. This is because Kasrkin have got a basic ballistic skill of 3+ anyway, which means that they hit more often than not most of the time. And if you're using this as a counter-attack tactic, which is my preferred way of using it, often you're going to have a senior officer who you can move into position to support. This means that when your Kasrkin jump out, they're going to be in range of someone who's giving them reroll 1s to hit anyway. Also, in today's fast-paced competitive elite infantry meta, you do tend to find that a lot of factions have got access to either incredibly durable units or some form of transhuman physiology, and having the ability to just get full rerolls means that your weapons like your melters and your plasmas are a lot less susceptible to those abilities that make sure you always fail on that wound roll of a 1, 2, or 3. So you've driven over to the target area, you've jumped out, you've smashed everything in sight, you've sent the enemy back from whence they came. Normally what would happen next is your Kasrkin would have to sit there out in the open and die, because a 4+ carapace armor save isn't that durable, and your opponent has just seen what they're capable of and he's not going to want to let you do it again. However, this is where our second stratagem comes in, one that is going to cause your opponent to feel an appropriate amount of frustration and rage. I am of course talking about Mount Up. This stratagem lets you get back inside a transport as long as all of your guys are within 3 inches of said transport. Yes, you can embark on a transport after you've shot. Yes, you can embark on the transport even if you disembark this turn. So essentially, you jump out, you kill everything, and then you jump back in. This kind of trickery is normally only reserved for those of the Eldar or Tau, and it's going to make them green with envy that you can do their thing better than they can. And the best bit is, you're back in your transport. So what do you think happens next turn? You do it again! And they can't stop you unless they destroy that transport, at which point they're putting loads of firepower into killing a Taurox, which you're probably kind of glad to get rid of anyway because it's such an unseemly model. And even if they do destroy the transport and the Kasrkin are forced to bail out, if you're clever with your placement and positioning, you can probably bail them out behind some line of sight blocking terrain. And that means, oh no, you've just got a Kasrkin squad running around. Now you can actually order them to take aim, and they're going to be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. And sure, they won't be able to use Armored Fist or Mount Up again with that particular Taurox, but if you happen to have another transport nearby, you can just do it again. Basically, until your opponent completely dismounts you and completely detracts you, this tactic is always going to be a threat to them. And it truly is a threat that he cannot ignore. Because as long as you have this squad available, you have a unit of Kasrkin that can move 17 to 19 inches a turn easily, and then disembark and shoot with 7 strength 8 AP -3 2 damage shots, 2 strength 8 AP -4 D6 with 2 damage shots. You've got the hotshot sniper, strength 4 AP 2 flat damage 3. You've got a cheeky crack grenade, and you've got the 6 hotshot rifle shots as well. All of which is going to have full rolls to wound, all of which still benefits from born soldiers, and all of which can just re-embark and do the same thing again the next turn. And what's beautiful about this tactic is how flexible it is. Because even if your opponent does end up taking out your Tauroxes, it doesn't matter. You've still got a fully loaded Kasrkin squad running around with a relic plasma pistol. You just start using take aim instead, so they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s thanks to senior officers, rerolling 1s to wound thanks to a command squad that's inevitably going to be nearby. And you're like, oh, you know what, I won't use Armor Fist anymore, I guess I'll just use good old fashioned ingrained precision. Now I'm auto wounding you on 5s instead. And so unless your opponent completely destroys all the constituent parts, this tactic is just going to keep coming back at him again and again and again. But all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you a fan of the rapid reaction force of the Blitzkrieg boys, or do you have another way that you prefer to use your Cajun elite? If you have enjoyed today's video, make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you have found today's video particularly fun or informative, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. By becoming a supporter, you will gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord, an online community of well over 1,000 active members. We've got channels for all sorts of things in the MG Discord. We've got tactics, hobbying, painting, army lists, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. And before we go, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members. So thank you to Binghammer, Red Queen's Ace, Matthew Foreman, BA_Scrim, Drotin Ulfa, Radagast, Federico R, Mr. Burn 2, Couch Spud, SoCal Soft, Mark Perkins, Poppin Crease, Trent Silver, Chris Arnott, MCTA20D, and Jake Alonso. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreons as well, so a massive thank you to Sven Langbean, Captain Neverscared, Deathcore Commander, Peter Stella, Tyson Bowman, and Craig Smith. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of the top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive, massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bonbon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ridemaster 134-1, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Diesel Fox, and of course, August Varney. Thank you to all of you guys. Your generous support is an incredible help, and it is a big part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.